Luis Suarez is the world's most famous human biter, but he's far from the only one. The beautiful game's most infamous vampire has drawn blood numerous times. In the tense winner-take-all Uruguay vs Italy World Cup match, the universally reviled striker Luis Suarez pretty clearly leaned in and took a bite of Giorgio Chiellini's shoulder. The ref didn't catch it, Uruguay went on to upset the Azzuri, and the post-game buzz was all about whether FIFA would review the incident and ban the star player from the tournament. Hello and welcome to Goalside. In today's video, we'll talk about Luis Suarez's habit of biting his opponents when he's angry and what's the reason behind it. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel and turn on the post notifications. So without wasting any time, let's dive right into the video. Why do you bite? If the referee had been looking in the general direction, he would have clearly seen Suarez leaning in with his mouth agape and proceeding to gnash Italian flesh like a crazy Twilight superfan. It's not like this is a more covert manner to inflict agony on an opponent. It's really a ludicrous method to communicate your dissatisfaction in an athletic setting, not to mention one that's rather ineffective and fairly revolting. However, there is a long and illustrious history of athletes and brawlers using their incisors to their advantage. The most famous example of this is obviously Mike Tyson's ear chomp in 1997. In the middle of scrums, when it's extremely difficult for the referee to detect human feeding, rugby players have been known to engage in biting behaviour. However, it's clear that Suarez is attempting to stake his claim as the most infamous biter in sports. This is at least the third time in nearly as many years that he bit an opponent when they were competing in a normal game. When it happened the year before, he received a 10-game suspension for biting Branislav Ivanovic on the arm. In 2010, Suarez was suspended for another biting and sat out 7 games as a result. Because of his savage behaviour, people sometimes refer to him as the cannibal. In case you were seeking for more reasons to detest him, he's also known for being racist, and he dashed Ghana's hopes of competing in the 2010 World Cup by handballing the ball deliberately in a glaring instance. Although it's shocking to see a human bite another, incidents like the one involving Suarez are not actually all that rare. A study that was conducted in 2007 by the National Institute of Health indicated that human bites were the third most common sort of mammal bites that were treated in the emergency room, behind attacks from dogs and cats. Human bites accounted for anything between 5 and 20% of all bite cases. That's not an insignificant amount of bites received by humans. Fight bites are when a person's fist or arm gets punctured as it slams into another person's mouth. But occlusive bites are the intentional teeth-on-skin violence that boxers and Suarez and Tyson are known for. The research focused solely on occlusive bites. According to the findings of this study, males are 12 times more likely to experience bite injuries, and alcohol was a factor in over 90% of the instances. Surprise! You're beginning to understand what I mean. In a bar or a stadium, men who are inebriated or amped up on adrenaline have an increased risk of transforming into perspiring, messed up vampires. Despite this, however, it does not explain the reason why. It continues to appear to be a rather pathetic alternative for battle. For what reason did Tyson chow down on Holyfield? Why does Walter take a bite out of the ear of that nihilist who's dressed in leather? In the aftermath of Suarez's incident in 2013, the BBC conducted an interview with sports psychologist Dr. Thomas Fawcett to find out the answer. Fawcett concluded after a thorough examination of the records that the chomp was a primitive response in which feelings were allowed to take precedence over the process of rational cognition. According to what Fawcett said in an interview with the BBC, it's not pre-planned, it's a very spontaneous, emotional response. He is acting on the spur of the moment. This helps explain why a fair number of human-on-human bites stem from bar fights or other physically aggravating settings. It's fundamentally animalistic, and despite what the majority of people may believe, it possesses a great deal more power. The idea that humans are poor biters was debunked in a study that was published in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. The research found that humans really have one of the most strong jaws among monkey species. According to the author of the study, Stephen Rowe, who was interviewed by Discovery News, when you truly look at the mechanics of it, the human jaw is incredibly efficient. We are able to obtain the desired bite force with significantly less muscle than is typically required. He stated that our jaw is between 40 and 50% more effective than the jaws of the giant apes. When compared pound for pound, our bite force is really greater than that of a gorilla or a chimpanzee. According to him, the force of our bite is actually comparable to that of a nutcracker. Of course, there are other motivations besides hostility behind why people bite other people. The paraphilia known as odaxalagnia is characterized by a desire for the sexual stimulation that results from biting. Cannibalism, which involves eating human flesh, is still practiced by a few groups and tribes today. This involves a lot of chewing and biting. Criminologists have also observed that certain types of violent offenders will bite their victims not out of an aggressive want to hurt them, but rather out of a sadistic desire to humiliate their victims. According to the criminologist David Wilson, who spoke to the BBC, the purpose of biting a victim is to mark them. But I think what is more significant for the perpetrator is that it shows something about how they viewed that particular victim, they said. The diagnosis for Suarez, who has a history of biting multiple people, may be somewhere in between that of a criminologist and a psychologist. However, there is at least one thing about which we can be very certain. Even if he was banned again, it's probable that Suarez will survive and continue to play to bite again. In the aftermath of his initial bite, which occurred in 2010, Suarez was offered counselling for anger management. Dr. Fawcett made the astute observation that it was unlikely to be of any use. He explained it by saying, "It's in the man." I would think that in 5 years' time, if there was a certain nerve hit or chord wrung with Suarez in a different setting, he would react in the same way. What are your thoughts on the excessive biting habit that Luis Suarez developed? Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you soon with the next video. Thank you so much for watching.